38 of the revised code. How do we run this meeting? First of all hearings, everything that's said is recorded, so we have a permanent record. And if I'm not mistaken, you could actually probably watch or listen to this within a couple days of tonight. All testimony will be given under oath. All speakers must sign in, and I believe that speakers have been signing in, and identify themselves by giving their names and addresses before speaking each time. And this is important. Speakers will only address the board and provide factual evidence. In other words, no crosstalk between speakers and people in the audience. We will not permit that. The applicant will speak first and present the request. Next, anyone supporting the application may also speak. Then anyone in opposition may speak. And here, typically at a zoning commission meeting, we might have a half dozen people in the audience, and maybe 2 or 3 will speak in favor and 2 or 3 against. Here, if there is a large number of people who are either in favor or opposed, I think it's probably the best that maybe the 3 or 4 most articulate members of that group come forward and talk, because repetition isn't going to drive anything home that we haven't gotten by that time. So, and I take it it's probably the opposition that is more numerous. If the opposition group will appoint their 3 or 4 most articulate people, we would appreciate that. The board members will then consider everything they've heard and will deliberate and vote in your presence. If we need additional evidence, continuance or postponement may occur. At the last meeting, some of what is necessary for the application wasn't present. My understanding is that that has been corrected. John?
Yes.
Okay, so we have jurisdiction, I think, now to hear the application on its merits. So what I'd like to do is have everybody who plans to speak stand up. Now's the time. Okay, now raise your right hands as high as you can. Do you swear or affirm that the information you are about to present is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief? Okay, thank you. How do you want to do this? Do we want to give the RPC a recommendation or wait until
I think first, Terry, because this was tabled the last meeting, I would move that we take off the table for presentation this evening proposed amendment number 592-25.
Okay, that's a motion?
It's a motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, Randbacher,
Yes.
Saltz,
Yes.
McCallion,
Yes.
and that carries it. The amendment is now on the table.
That being said, yes, I would suggest that we review or present the Stark County Regional Planning position letter.
Okay. This is okay. And for those of you who don't know what the Regional Planning Commission is, it is a body that serves all of the political subdivisions in Stark County, and itself will review proposed applications and make recommendations to this body. We are not bound by such recommendations, but regional planning does have expertise that is valuable to us. I'm going to not necessarily read word for word, but try to summarize. They met back on November 4, 2025 to consider the proposed rezoning from R1 to R6 of a 59.11 acre tract on the east side of Elmhurst, south of Mount Pleasant, and on either side of Ivy. The Regional Planning Commission recommends approval of the proposed rezoning to R6. The following facts were considered by the Commission in its decision. 1. The area surrounding the subject tract primarily consists of single-family, residential, and agricultural uses. Further east are several tracts classified as public service, including property owned by the township, a church, and a nonprofit. Additionally, there is a tract classified as commercial. Further west are tracts containing a golf course classified as recreation. 2. The zoning generally follows the land use as the R1 single-family district exists to the north, south, and east. The RR, that is rural residential, and R1 single-family districts exist to the west. 3. The tract proposed for rezoning is approximately 59 acres, and the subject tract is split in half by Ivy Street. According to the application, the purpose of the zone change request is to develop single-family, high-quality homes that highlight and preserve elements the parcel naturally offers to future homeowners. The site appears to have been zoned as a single-family residential since zoning was initiated in Plain Township. RPC and did no further review. 4. The Stark County 2040 Comprehensive Plan designates the future use of the area as developed suburban. 5. In the 2020 Plain Township Comprehensive Plan, RPC identified the northern residential portion of the township, which includes these 59 acres, as having environmental features that should be considered in the planning of future development. The comprehensive plan further suggests the township consider rezoning areas to the planned unit development district, as doing so encourages future development to be sensitive to environmental features and requiring 30% of the land to be deemed as open space and recreational facilities while providing flexible and innovative development of the land. Additionally, in the planned urban development district, the PUD, the township is given the opportunity to be the development review authority, ensuring the appropriate direction the township desires is achieved. This parcel is currently not served by, this is 6, this parcel is currently not served by sanitary sewer or public water, which, according to the Plain Township zoning resolution, are required. However, according to the Stark County Sanitary Engineer's Office, the NEFCO Clean Water Section 208 plan identifies this area as expected to have sanitary sewer within 20 years, and any development would have to be served by sanitary sewer. I expect the applicant tonight to give further information as to where access to a public sewer and public water is located. 7. The permitted density under the R6 district is 6 dwelling units per acre with a minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet for single-family dwellings. This would allow approximately 240 single-family dwellings over the 59-acre tract, not including streets. The current R1 zoning allows for a minimum lot size of 15,000 square feet, which would allow 171 lots with no requirements for preservation of environmental features of the land, and assuming availability of sanitary sewer and excluding roadways. The proposed development shows 120 lots. 8. While a concept plan has been submitted for the site, RPC only reviewed the proposed zone change at that time. Any future development would require compliance with Stark County subdivision regulations and other applicable agencies. Two other reports were received. One is from the Stark County Metro Sewer District. That's the sanitary engineer, and there, Thomas Davis of the sewer district wrote, "Dear Mr. Crane," apparently Mr. Crane is involved in this project, and this is a letter actually dated today. "The subject parcel lies within the Stark County Metro Sewer District, and the development of the parcel shown on the concept plan dated November 18, 2025 can be served by the district. Your group," I guess apparently being the applicant, "shall provide the necessary centralized sanitary sewer system for development in conformance with the rules and regulations of this department, the City of Canton, and the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency." A third piece of correspondence received is from the Plain Township Fire Department, from the fire prevention officer. That was dated October 22, 2025. In that letter, the Plain Township Fire Department stated it had received and reviewed the proposed rezone. They understand the proposed rezone would be to go from R1 to R6 to develop the area for single-family homes for residential use. The maps were reviewed and were provided, and the fire department had these comments. One, diagrams provided show fire hydrants along all streets at intervals of approximately 350 feet, except for the absence of clearly visible fire hydrant markings located in the cul-de-sacs along B Street and E Street. Fire hydrants are spaced at intervals of approximately 350 feet along all roadways in the proposed area. However, a lack of fire hydrants within the cul-de-sacs is contrary to the distance requirement that is projected throughout the rest of the plan. The lack of fire hydrants in the cul-de-sacs could potentially create fire response concerns in the event of a fire emergency in which fire hydrants must be used. The Plain Township Fire Department accordingly requests the addition of fire hydrants in the cul-de-sacs identified as B Street and E Street, consistent with the remaining streets proposed in the supplied drawings. That is that. Are there any, and zoning director, are there any further pieces of correspondence? These are the three I see.
That's the only thing that was added, yeah.
Okay, so at this time, who's here to speak for the applicant? Okay, why don't you start by telling us who you are and giving us your address?
Sure. Kristen Monroe, 3296 Columbia Road, Richfield, Ohio, 44286.
Okay, you've been sworn.
Yes.
Okay, and what are your qualifications?
I am the land acquisition manager for K Canadian Homes.
Okay, are you an engineer or anything of that kind?
No.
Okay, go ahead and make your presentation.
Wonderful. First, I just wanted to introduce myself as Kristen Monroe, land acquisition manager with K Canadian Homes. We do have a presentation that we've prepared for you this evening. If that's okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with our engineer, Travis Crane, who's going to discuss the site layout with you.
Okay, and give us your name and your address.
Travis Crane, C-R-A-N-E. Address is 1310 Sharon Copley Road, Sharon Center, Ohio, 44274.
Okay, and are you an engineer or some other kind of professional?
I'm a licensed engineer in the state of Ohio and multiple other states as well.
Okay. And you're in charge of the screen.
Sure. So thank you for your time tonight. Similar to what was said, I think we were meeting, was it back in December?
November.
November, thank you. We're, summarize the data here real quick. Approximately 59 acres, little over 21 acres of open space is what we're proposing. The requirement's 30%, we're proposing 36% of open space. We're proposing 120 single-family sublots. We have open space that's preserving two several key areas. One, there's a floodplain. There's a floodplain on this drawing. The last drawing north was to the top. On this drawing, you get a better scale. North is to the right as you're looking at this drawing, so north is to the right. So on our northern section, there's a FEMA floodplain running through the project. And what the R6 PUD code does specifically in Plain Township, and generally PUDs, no matter what district it's in, it gives you flexibility to deal with certain environmental issues. So we're taking advantage of that in this code, assuming that we do get the R6 PUD rezoning, and we're saving significant open space, not impacting the floodplain, better thing for the environment, better for stormwater management, complying with the general gist and taking advantage of what the PUD section of the code allows us to do versus the straight and existing R1 code. Also providing significant open space to the neighbors, the existing homeowners. We've got a minimum of 30 feet around all sections of the property, and significantly more in most places. So there's 30 feet in a couple places. 2 sublots on the north. There's 30 feet as open space, and 1 or 2 sublots on the extreme south. But every place on this east property line, there's significantly more than 30 foot of open space we have there, and that's plan on doing some mounding there and some landscape to give some visual buffer between this neighborhood and the existing property owners. So I think it was requested at the last meeting, we're at to show more detail on the utilities. So what this drawing does, the green lines are the proposed storm sewers, the red lines are the proposed sanitary sewers, and the blue line is the proposed water line. Just to be clear, just for the record, these are schematic in nature. We need to get approval from Stark County on the location and sizing of the sewer lines. We need to get approval from the city of Canton for sizing and locations of the water lines. Storm sewers will be designed by my team, and that'll be approved by the Stark County engineer's office, and also regional planning as an engineer on staff that will be reviewing the plans as well. So as you can see from this, we're planning on getting existing gravity sewer line on the south side of the project and extending that sewer north on Elmhurst and into the subdivision that way through Stark County Sanitary Engineer Service, which that letter is provided. Water is coming from Market Street and Ivy, and that's shown. That'll be extended west on Ivy into the project, and it's shown on this map accordingly. And I believe we also submitted email history in our application since the last meeting of correspondence we've had with the city of Canton. And also, per the code and a request that was made, we did provide detailed information on a traffic report that our team did also. Before everybody go into details on that, I could ask, that is provided and it complies with the code. So.
Do I need to introduce myself again? Am I okay? So in continuation of the presentation, I just wanted to give a brief overview of our company. K Hovnanian Homes is the 16th largest national home builder in the country. We build in 14 states, primarily on the East Coast, down to Texas, and then over to California. While we are a publicly traded company. We are still majority owned and operated with the Hovnanian family. So we kind of get the best of both worlds, the security of a publicly traded company, but then we're still a family-ran organization, which is really beneficial. I did also want to show just a little bit about what sets us apart from our competitors. We are very focused on the design elements that you have in our homes. So we have something that is called our looks collections. This is what is going to set us apart from other national home builders, so that when you walk into your home, you're not walking into a blank space, you're walking into a decorated area, and you get to decide what that looks like and which style fits you best. So our looks collections are the thing that sets us apart, because you're walking into something that looks more like what you would see, on HGTV, as opposed to just a builder's grade home. I also provided here just some exterior material information. We're using the best quality that we can for our homes. We are using, architectural 50-year shingles. We use a combination of exterior materials. On every single house, we're going to have a combination of vinyl, stone, stucco, hardy board. We've got options that, that fit all of those elements depending on what your style is. And so this is just a representation of some options that are available. And then I certainly wanted to provide some renderings as well. These are just sample home elevations that you may see throughout homes that we have built before. All of our homes are fee simple, single family homes. We do for sale product only. We have zero rental product. Our prices right now for this development, we are really trying to stay in the high threes for starting prices. And those would be 3 to 4 bedroom houses, a minimum of 2 bathrooms, and then on the northern parcel, you would have 3 car options, because those are a little bit larger lots. So just wanted to give a brief overview of some examples of homes that you may see in this development. And then the last thing that I wanted to provide, so this is a sample site layout of the current zoning with the R1 zoning that it is right now. This site is laying out 92 lots of what can be built based off of the current zoning that it is. The reason that we are here tonight is because we truly feel like this is not the right site plan for Plain Township. We feel that the R6 allows us a lot more benefit to the community than doing a site plan like this. The reasons being, number one, and probably first and foremost, in the R6 plan, we only have curb cuts, so there's only entrances off of Ivy and Elmhurst where roads are coming in. On this plan, you have 21 driveways coming off of your main road. So either off of Ivy, there are 9, and off of Elmhurst, there are 12. So that would be 21 homeowners that would be turning into their driveways, coming out of their driveways, folks backing out, and the R6 avoids all of that. There's zero driveways in the R6 plan. They're only going into the actual streets of the community. We also, on this plan, there is no open space requirement in the existing R1. In our R6 plan, we are providing 36% open space. So substantial open space that allows for us to keep the natural terrain of the property. And that really is the next big point. And as you can see on this R1 plan, especially on the north side, any developer that is going to develop this site would have to start digging into some of the natural terrain that is there. In the R6 layout, which will be on the next slide again, we're able to avoid all of that. We can keep the natural stream. We don't have to have any impact. We can actually use that as a benefit for our homeowners to enjoy those areas, as opposed to having to dig into those areas. And then the last piece is there's also no buffer in the R1 zoning to neighboring properties. So you can see on here, anyone that is neighboring this site would have, the homeowner would have property and able to do anything that they see fit all the way up until their property line. On the R6 plan, you have, as Travis just mentioned, 25 to 30, and in some cases even more feet in between your property line and the property line of the homeowner that is behind you. So it provides a lot more space, a lot more privacy, and really a lot more protection to the existing homeowners that are there. So the proposed building pads on this plan are closer to existing home sites, and the proposed homeowners, their land directly is adjacent to these existing homeowners if we went with the R1 as opposed to the R6. And that's really why we're here. That's why we're going through this whole process. It's not to get 20 more houses on the site. It's really to provide a better plan, a better layout, a safer layout, to allow for 120 new families to put their roots here in Plain Township, as opposed to going to Lake or Jackson or Uniontown or somewhere else. They would be here in a safe, family-friendly environment in the R6 zoning. And that's really why we're here today. So this is a landscape plan of our site as well. Again, we're highlighting the natural terrain. We're highlighting the buffer around the edges. We have, plans to have landscaping that would be in those areas and or mounding as we see appropriate. Our goal would be to provide landscaping around Ivy and Elmhurst as well, to provide our new homeowners a little bit of privacy also. And so we really just appreciate the opportunity to present this evening. I'm going to wrap it up with the homeowner right now that has a couple of last closing statements, if that is okay with you.
It is okay. And your name and address, sir?
My name is Greg Koth. I live at 4915 Shady Knoll Avenue Northwest. That's in Massillon, Ohio.
Okay.
So, graduated from the University of Akron Engineering School. Koth Builders has been in business for 65 years. We've built over 2,000 homes in Stark County. We've done 12 developments ourselves, so we think we have a pretty good feel for the area. I've been through a lot of these zoning meetings, and I don't have any expectations of, after I say a few words, you guys say, wow, that Greg's a neat guy, and we all know his dad, and Tom was at Middle Branch for years, and you guys are great guys, so we'll do anything you want. I have no expectations of that. I just want you to hear a couple facts while I'm here. The farm was originally owned by Paul Weber. Paul Weber was the original developer of Bobolink Estates and Bobolink, and Paul was always going to develop the property. We bought the property when Paul Weber passed away from the girls. My father was good friends with the family. We did not play any games with putting the property under some magical LLC. We didn't put it under Green Acre Farms. We played no games. The minute we purchased it, it was deeded and set up with Koth Custom Builder and Developer. No games. Everybody knows what my company does for a living. That was our intention from the minute we bought it. We're not farmers. One of the most important things of my discussion is the Stark County Economic Development Board, with the approval of Stark County Commissioners, hired a nationwide company to do the housing study, which you're very aware of, and that was done in 2024, finished early in 25. They paid a couple $100,000 for that study, as you know. They do work in 45 out of 50 states, and they've worked for almost every state in doing this type of study. The goal of that was getting participation from all the cities and townships. Plain Township was a big part of it. I was there, all the developers, all the cities, everybody was there. They did 3 days of independent reviews with all different groups to get viewpoints. They researched ages, income, demographics, available land, zoning, and everything else before they put their study together. It's a 144-page document, but they put together basically a 9-bullet point responsibility on what they're recommending. I know you've read it, so I won't bore you, but a couple highlights. Institute a developer roundtable with the county to provide zoning to address restrictive issues impacting housing development. Create an ordinance that allows for more density when creating new housing projects. All townships should revise zoning and regulations that are currently too restrictive for residential developments and allow higher density housing. under update and revise regulations. First item in bold print, make it easier to develop subdivisions with newer creative options as opposed to standard density levels. So if you look, as Kristen said, you look at that R1, it's just slapped in there. We got driveways everywhere, no green space, no buffers, no mounds. It just lays there. There's different reasons to do it, but if you read their report, that's exactly what they're recommending. They end with provide key strategies to encourage zoning reform to allow for more diverse housing types. That's their recommendation to Stark County, Ohio. All the cities and townships received it. You guys were in full support of it and being there to the meeting, so I know you were a big part of it. I think that's very important. So one of the other concerns is a lot of people called me and wanted to discuss this at my office. I talked to a lot of people. One of the big issues was property values, which obviously we all have a lot of money invested in our homesteads, and we want to make sure that's, you know, kept to a high value. After many of those calls, anybody that called me, I would just ask, hey, where do you live, just so I would know. I did a little study myself. The 30 homes that adjoin the property, the current appraised value of all 30 of those homes, the average is $255,000. Nice homes, they were great when they were built, they all met the architecture of that time. It's a nice area to live, that's why the land's valuable. People want to live there, this is going to sell well. If you do the research, and I've talked to Kristen, if you look at the housing that they're proposing after extras, options, and the way they have their houses set up, her goal is their average house price on completed pricing, which is what they shared with me, will be between $500 and $580.
And that would include the cost of the lot?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And obviously with today's pricing, that's a big part of that and the cost of land. So my discussion is headed towards, we have all the houses around there, the average property value is $255,000. They're proposing building houses that will end up in the $500,000 to $580,000. So it would be very difficult for that price house to hurt the value of the average houses that are there. When they would go to sell their houses, obviously they're going to use comps of the properties that sell in the area. They're going to show all those at that value, and it's going to pull their value up. Everybody in real estate knows that theory. So, as Kristen said, we're not here to discuss whether a housing development's going to go on this farm. There's going to be housing development there. There's no question there. We've already talked about that. I think the plan is a lot better. You know, I would urge folks that are here, and I know I'm not addressing them, but if you really look at this plan and look at your personal property, there are many homeowners that could end up with a house 30 to 50 feet further away from them with a buffer and trees in this drawing compared to a house that's much closer with no architecture and no landscaping. So there's other issues than just density, 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 and that shouldn't be the prime driving. But all I ask is, please take into account when you make recommendations the housing study. There was a couple $100,000 spent on that study. Those folks work all around the country. They looked at all of Stark County. That's what they're proposing. I know regional planning was really in tune with that meeting as well, and I know they're completely integrated with what that is. So that's all I ask, and I thank you for your time.
Commission members, questions for the applicant's team?
Question and comment. You're probably aware that if this is rezoned to the R6, that it does permit, for instance, two-family and multifamily dwellings. And one of the things I'm concerned about is, you know, once you rezone something to an R6, even with the best of intentions of putting in 120 single-family lots, you still would be able to do a multifamily development. And one of the things I would ask and put out there is, would there be a willingness to voluntarily place a restrictive covenant on the property, limiting it to single-family homes?
Yeah, that's obviously the best question to ask, and I knew that would be first. You know, just approving R6 just opens up everything in R6, and I think we get that. But I don't think there will be any qualms on the development team to say in writing whatever works best for you guys. We have no goals of doing anything different than that plan, not changing density, not going to multi, nothing else available in R6. Our goal isn't to do anything other than that. We would put that in writing. If you want it through covenants or whatever works best for you legally, we're fine with that. I know that's a big concern. Everybody's asked me that same question.
Is this your first PUD?
It's gonna be,
It's you.
well, you,
This is not our first PUD. No, we often, for Cough Custom, is that what?
Yeah, for cough, and here's where I'm going with this. One of the features of a PUD district, if I'm looking at this correct, is that you can't do anything without having a final development plan that is signed off on by the trustees. So that makes this a little different from other rezone classifications in that, yeah, you get an R6, it looks like you're off to the races for whatever you want, but you really can't. And I would, not knowing what we're going to do, I would expect the trustees to require that of you, and that leads to me to ask this, okay? The property is currently owned by Koth, right? And how long will it remain owned by Koth?
so the property's gonna transfer to Cahovanian when everything's taken care of as far as the sale. They're gonna develop the property. I'm more in a consulting situation with them. Now, a lot of people ask, and you're gonna ask this question next, and I'll answer it before you ask it, because I've had a lot of friends and neighbors and relatives ask, hey, Koth Builders, you've done that many homes in the area, why are you not developing it? It's pretty simple. My dad hasn't worked since the 90s. I've owned and operated the company since then. A lot of people know, I just recently announced I'm kind of winding down the construction end of my business. I'm going to be doing some developing, some other stuff, but I'm not doing as much developing as I used to. So at this point, I'm kind of in a consultant situation, but I'm not wanting to get into that size project at my current age, at where I'm at, and that's the only reason. The other reason is, if you look at the R6 and you look at what this company's set up to do, there's no way that my company can be as competitive as they can be with materials and labor, with their buying power and the relationships they have throughout the country. So if somebody would come to me and say, Greg, we'll give you the zoning, you do that construction. My company's problem is I'm used to doing, more custom, flexible type homes. I can't be as cost competitive as they can in that market based on their buying power.
So Hovnanian is the one that's going to develop the streets and bring in the sewer and water.
Well, they'll sub it out. Their company won't do
Well,
it, but
no,
yeah,
they'll
bid it, yes.
All right. So that answers that question. Now, the green space that you show on the diagram, will that be commonly owned?
Yes, all open space would be commonly owned by the HOA. So the homeowners would be responsible.
So ultimately, like in many developments that occur here in Stark County, the end goal is for an owner-run HOA.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, that's all my questions, but they probably have a few.
I just want to make sure I understand. Cahovanian is going to develop it and build the homes?
So Cahovnanian, we are a builder. We prefer to do vertical construction. So we would purchase the land, most likely have a developer come in and actually do the infrastructure. We build the actual homes. Yes.
So you're not doing we buy lot by lot by lot?
No.
Okay.
Any further questions from the commission? Okay, you may sit down, and now, are there any other persons who would speak in favor of the application? Okay, now, persons who are here to speak in opposition? Anyone wants to?
Go in the order they signed up, Terry?
Pardon?
Do you want me to just go in the order they're signed up?
That'd be great.
All that way?
How many signed up?
I got about 10 or 12 people.
Okay, go in order. Who's first?
Yep, Keith Bradley on Ivy Street, 1481.
Does this work? Does this work? Works.
Okay, you're good.
Okay. I'm Keith Bradley. I live at 1481 Ivy. I live there. It's on the corner of Ivy and Elmhurst. I've lived there for 42 years. Okay, and my house is not $250,000. It's valued at about $400-some thousand. Okay, so I don't know where he got that, but the trip generation report is what I'm about to talk about, and I know that Davie Resource has submitted it to you townships. But I have one thing, is the report does not address the concerns those of us residents living near the site experience every day. Since the report was based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, it does not include, I should say, it doesn't include delivery vehicles such as FedEx, Amazon, UPS, trash trucks, lawn service trucks. And does the manual account for the fact that Ivy and Elmhurst Streets are both heavily traveled as cut-throughs? Okay. There is also additional traffic from the local roads generated by the preschool located at Holy Cross Lutheran Church. During the peak hours, cars will be backed up with the lights at Ivy and Market, Elmhurst, and Apple Grove Street. Okay, making it difficult for residents to go in and out of their driveways, streets, okay? Could the intersection of Ivy and Elmhurst become a three-way stop to basically control a little bit of the traffic that's coming and going? Because the report shows in Table 1, Trip Generation Summary, an additional 1,234 trips will be generated during the weekday if the R6 zoning is approved. I can't imagine the existing roads, Ivy and Elmhurst, will be able to handle the additional trips for the new residents of the R6. So if the township trustees approve the zoning request, will Ivy and Elmhurst have to be widened and improved to be able to handle the trips? And who is going to pay for this? And will it be taken out of, if they have to widen that, will they be taken out of like our property? Since they're completely vacant right now, could they widen the roads, by taking it out of theirs? And then motors speed up and down Elmhurst, making it, tough to walk or ride a bike. And the speed limit on north of Ivy Street, will it be lowered to 35? And will the speed limit on Ivy be reduced to 25? Because during the winter months, if we get a heavy snowfall, Ivy Street is reduced to one lane to because of the bank that's along the south side field right there on Ivy. The applicant's development plan does not include if the bank will be removed so that when they plow, it'll get rid of that snow and keep it a two-lane road. And it's by allowing 120 homes in this Ivy Reserve site, the current residents in the area will lose the large lot residential feel of the neighborhood, which is a big reason many of us have chosen to live there. And this will significantly decrease our quality of life. And I thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I forgot to ask you to stay up here for questions, but apparently nobody has questions. So who's next?
I have Paul. Yep.
Thanks for being here. May I ask a question of the board?
Only after you give me your name and address.
Paul Badger, 7760 Northland Avenue, right behind Holy Cross Lutheran Church.
What's the question?
I want to get an understanding. So if this R6 goes through, how much of the utilities improvements, be it the sewer, the water, am I going to pay for?
I am not a county official, I am not a township official.
So somebody decides to come in and develop this, and they go, hey, you know what? We're gonna dip in your pocket for this too, because we've got to make road improvements, utility improvements. I didn't ask for this. So
my impression is the developer Hovnanian is going to pick up all the costs of roads within the
It's your
development
understanding.
and all the costs to bring utilities to the site and on the site.
If this does not go R6, does the developer still plan on purchasing the property and proceeding with the 90 homes?
I don't know.
Or if
That's
it does not go R6, is it a dead deal?
I don't know, and that's not before us, so we have
Well,
R6 application.
We don't know the answer to that question,
Okay.
but can he? Absolutely.
I mean, it can be built on now,
It's zoned R1, you can
Right,
build
okay.
our main homes.
but I'm just curious, since the property's getting ready to transfer, if it doesn't go R6, it seems to me like the cart before the horse. If it doesn't go R6, is it a dead deal? Okay, all right, so, I noticed that the venue has changed each time we've met. It's getting larger and larger, right? It seems like, and it's my understanding that we did that to accommodate a safe space, right? So, there's a problem when you have high density in a small compartment, which is what we're getting ready to, we're proposing. So I appreciate your consideration by changing the venue. Lived on Northland for 30 plus years, raised 2 kids in Plain. We love it. We try to participate in the community and whatnot. Our 2 children bought their first homes in Plain. Love the idea that they're staying close. The property that brings us in here tonight is less than a third of a mile from our home. We're quite familiar with it as we drive past it every day, multiple times a day. We've witnessed the changes of it. We've seen the agricultural, the crops change and whatnot. It's a kind of neat thing. We didn't expect that that property was going to stay the same forever. No one that I have spoken to in our community has spoken in opposition of any change to that property. What we're opposing is the stark change in it. Okay? I feel that the proposal for zone change to R6 is a gross imposition on the Plain Township community, especially with the neighboring homeowners that border and surround this property, both on a short-term and long-term. I appreciate you asking about the whole, because once it's R6, it's forever R6. And if something decides to change or go awry on it later, we're stuck with it. R6 just does not fit this demographic here. There's not a bordering property that is less than a half an acre. It's just not Plain. These are tight. I mean, I'm here in terms like cluster homes, high density. I feel like the R6 poses an upset and a negative impact on the quality of our life and safety of the surrounding homes. High density places a greater demand and competition and strain for limited resources, water, electric, space. It creates increased likelihood for conflict. We just witnessed this over on Apple Grove back in October when there was a shooting. You get dense population together, greater likelihood for conflict. That's what I'm seeing here. Keith mentioned the traffic patterns. We're seeing it every day. If you're familiar with Holy Cross, the light over there, I have probably 40 videos that I had to set up cameras in my front yard of people that tried to bypass that light there on the corner of Diamond and Market, come zipping around our yard. I mean, I've set up 4 cameras there. Sheriff's made complaints to the sheriff. You know, there's a lot of traffic that comes through there. High density is going to create more waste. High density is going to create a reduction in the air quality, be it emissions, vehicles, furnaces, lawnmowers, all of it. It's going to create a noise situation. High density is going to mean an increase in nighttime activity over there in that area. It's going to mean an increase in transient visitors from outside of our community. We see cars come past our house midnight, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I can't imagine what's going to happen when we start getting all that traffic. Forgive me for this. The high density impact, did a little bit of math. I took the zoning board members' properties, put them together, and I come up with a sum of 364,000 square feet amongst your homes. If you took the same 60 acres of property that's in question, that's 2.6 million square feet, with 120 homes, that's a density increase of 183%. That would equate to 11 homes, additional homes, amongst your properties. Who wants that? That's tight. 2020 COVID mandates taught us that better health and safety comes from modest social distancing and spacing. I'm not seeing that. R6 would be a stark contradiction to that. I'd encourage the board to keep this thing R1, as it should be, and maintain plain. That's it.
Any questions from commission members? Okay, who's next?
Pete at 7397 Elmhurst.
My name is Pete Jarakowitz, and I reside at 7347 Elmhurst Avenue.
What was the last name?
Jarakowitz.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And lived there over 30 years. We live directly across the street from the property that's looking to be developed. I'm going to kind of go off script here. I look at this property, okay, open space. Show me the access to all residents. It is through everybody else's backyard. It is not an easily accessible property. Second of all, if you look at the fountains at Edgewood, a PUD, they have a community center, a public swimming pool, and also a clubhouse and an exercise facility. Where do you see anything that is even closely resembles that for the people in that area? Going to the density, think about it. If you look at the size of those lots, and people want to use their backyards for a picnic, have some company over, and the next door neighbor has the same thing going on, you're not going to have any privacy. They're literally 10 to 20 feet apart, and the backyards are minuscule compared. I'm on a half-acre lot. My next door neighbor has a little bigger lot. He can throw a football, I can hit golf balls in my yard, and I don't hit anybody's house. No way you're going to do that there. So, to me, one more statement I'll make. The R1 plan put up by the developers, that is not the only R1 plan you can put on that land. They talked about all the 21 lots going out, driveways going onto Elmhurst. I offered, that doesn't have to happen. These have internal roads, you could do the same thing and have the driveways face into that allotment. So the idea that this is much, much better is contrary to what it really is for the community, the lifestyle we've created over the decades that we've lived here. And this even extends to the point that people in Steiner, further west, further east, are all upset about this because of, as Paul talked about and Keith talked about, the density of traffic, the congestion. Right now on Elmhurst, it's a 35-mile-an-hour road. People are going down that road 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. You're going to start adding more cars and that traffic? Something needs to be done about that additionally, whether it's speed bumps or something. But to me, this is, I hate to say it this way, this is a pipe dream. Again, if you look at the northern portion where the flood zone is, it's not a theoretical flood zone. You can ask the residents that live up there, when it rains heavily, it is flooded. And that zone up there, the bottom level of that area, I call it a basin, because it is about 10 to 15, 20 feet below Ivy Street. So the water coming out of there is a flood zone. And you can see they don't do anything with the trees. What are people going to do there for recreation? They're going to walk from their homes and carry their picnic baskets and build a little, this is not a real open space for recreational activity. What kind of recreation can you do there? Think about it. Can you play a baseball game? Can you play, frisbees? Yeah, in people's backyards. So this is totally contrary to the lifestyle in the whole community, including places like Steiner, etc. So I submit that you should act as you're supposed to, as being representatives of the people of Plain Township, not builders. You should act in our interests, and we do not want this. Any questions?
That's what I was looking to them for. Apparently no questions. Thank you very much. Chief, who's next?
Dr. Larry Hooper, is that pronounced right?
Yeah, no.
09 Lander.
Yeah, you said it right.
Okay.
You don't want to call me Dr. Butcher.
I respect, I want to call you out. Can you come down to the next one and make it hear you know? Yeah.
Okay, my name's Dr. Larry Booker. I live on 1091 Lander Street, Northwest. All the gentlemen before me did a beautiful job. It's what my wife and I feel deep inside our hearts. I guess I have one question, if I may ask. The applicant stated they did a traffic study. And to me, that seems like it's a little subjective. Was there an objective study done? Because we travel down Ivy and Elmhurst very often and never saw those little black things go across the road. I mean, her and I both wondered, has a study been done? So that was one of my biggest concerns, but the other gentlemen before me, I think they expressed them, Any questions other than dentistry?
Not even for dentistry. My mouth is okay these days.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have Lori Shirley on Stony.
Commission. My name is Lori Shirley, and I live at 1340 Stonington Road, Northwest, North Canton, in Pembroke. I'm also the president of the Pembroke Homeowners Association, so I'm speaking here tonight on behalf of the association and the Board of Trustees. We would like to respectfully request that this board disapproves the zoning application, and I'm going to go through a couple of findings and facts about it that we see it quite differently than the developer does. A little bit of history about Pembroke. There's 8 lots in Pembroke that have a common property line with the southern portion of the property. And so what that means is Pembroke was developed in the 1960s. It was subdivided then and has 112 dwelling units and 4 undeveloped lots. And most of those 120 lots are 20,000 square feet or half an acre, give or take a little bit. Some property owners do have 2 lots associated with their homes. Pembroke is a quiet residential neighborhood, and it has no sidewalks. It is mostly served by individual private well and septic systems. There are a few homes that do have sanitary sewer. And one of the contrasts I'd like to point out is that if this R6 zone is approved, the development will be required to have a lot of impervious surface, and so that means that there's going to be a lot of stormwater management issues, flooding issues, and I think that there's another person or two here, property owners that live north of Ivy, closer to the floodplain, that can explain to you the flooding that they experience when there are significant rain events. I'd like to just point out the contrast and the conflict that the R6 zone and the lot sizes that are proposed here at 7,500 square feet. So that means that of the 8 lots in Pembroke that back up to Ivy Reserve, you could put 3 Ivy Reserve lots in relation to 1 Pembroke lot. The Ivy Reserve plan also offers no transition between the existing half-acre lots in Pembroke, and we see that as a problem. There is another R6 development that we're all familiar with in this area, and that's the Fountains at Edgewood. That's a true R6 development in that if you compare and contrast that site to this one, the Fountains has planned community facilities that are part of it, whereas this site has none of that. There are 6 purposes of the R6 zone, and this application only meets one of those, and that's the minimum lot size or minimum amount of area for the parcel at 20 acres. So as Pete said, where are the community facilities that are usually provided in a planned unit development? I would suggest to you that this development, all it really does is it's a subdivision that's making a grab for density in the R6 zone. If it were a true planned development, you would have a clubhouse, you would have the land area for that, but obviously you don't have that here. Again, it's all about the density and how many units can you jam pack into this site. I would also stress to you that we believe the applicant doesn't make a very compelling case. The burden of proof is on them, and they should be able to demonstrate to you why you should support this plan at this location. If you were to take a more of a bird's eye view of this, and I think it was on their original utility zoning plan that they had at the last hearing, I don't know if you have a slide, but I would like to just show this site in relation to the surrounding neighborhoods. Pete has a good one here.
If you look at this, I'll show it briefly. If you look at this, this is the plan, the proposed homes. If you look at all of these lots around here, these are the lots, like a quarter inch compared to these lots. I might also state that with 3 to 4 streets going out. So you don't have 21 driveways hitting Elmhurst. You have 3 or 4 streets. But they're only serving 16 homes on each side. You would have 45 home sites in there, which would be exactly the same type of density in the total surrounding community. You would serve the same lifestyle, the same safety, the same privacy, as opposed to this. Sorry for interrupting.
But one thing that the plan that Pete just showed you is, if you looked at the properties that are along Elmhurst, closer to Mount Pleasant, that's the RR zone. And there are some large lot homes there that are, they're much more than $250,000. They're closer to $1 million. And I would also dispute that what Kristen said about the study that was done and the average price of a home in this vicinity that sold at $250,000. I can tell you for a fact that one of the 8 houses in Pembroke in relation to Ivy Reserve sold in, I believe it was the last 18 months, and sold for $401,000. I would also note that they say that they're clustering these lots to preserve and protect natural resources that are there. If you're familiar with this property, the portion of it that is south of Ivy Street, there are no natural resources there. That's a cornfield. And corn is an agricultural crop. It's not a natural resource. So what is it that they're preserving and protecting in the way of these open space areas? And I would also suggest to you that the open space areas that they're showing here, there's no opportunity for passive or active recreation there. So we believe that this plan is more in the way of a wolf in sheep's clothing, because again, it's a subdivision plan. It's nothing more than that, because if it was a planned unit community, they would be providing for those community facilities where people could go and have, go to a community swimming pool, a clubhouse, or an indoor recreational facility. I would like to say too that the comments that Keith Bradley made, who lives right there on Ivy Street, I agree with him. Because when you look at the applicant's trip generation report and the number of new weekday vehicle trips at 1,234, that's staggering. If you are familiar with the existing road condition of Ivy Street and Elmhurst, do you really think that those roads in the existing conditions will be able to bear that additional traffic? And I'd like to know if you think the answer is yes, there obviously has to be some road improvements that are going to be made. At what point in time are those made? Who pays for them? And do the completion of any of those road improvements, does it time with the day that one new single weekday trip is put onto the roads? Probably not. So again, I would emphasize to you that this plan, all it's trying to do is maximize the density. It's, again, it's a grab for that density, and the wolf is in the sheep's clothing is that, they're trying to call this an R6 development. It's not R6. They could very easily develop this property under R1. It would have less impact all the way around on the environment, on the roads, on the installation of utilities. And the suggestion that Kristen made about the site plan that would have 21 driveways onto Elmhurst, that probably wouldn't happen. I worked in planning for my career, and I never saw a plan like that where subdivision review people would not allow for that number of vehicle trips to back out onto a road like Elmhurst. I'd also just like to conclude my comments by making note of the fact that on the Plain Township Zoning Department's webpage, on the township website, there's a paragraph that explains what the purpose and the function and the role is of the Planning and Zoning Department. So I want to read this quote into the record. The zoning department regulates land use, prevents land use conflict, allows growth to occur in a rational manner, and manages density, unquote. So I would like to suggest to you that all of us taxpayers here, residents of Plain Township, we would like to request that you live up to that statement on your website and do the right thing, make the obvious decision to protect our property values and to manage the density and to allow for the rational growth of this area and development of this property under the R1 zone. Thank you for your time.
That's all right, no questions. Who's next?
I have Pete Campbell on Ivy Street.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Peter John Campbell. I live at 1200 Ivy Street. I'm not as articulate as anyone who has just spoken before me. I am not a technical-minded person. I'm not an architect or a city planner. I am a dad of 2 children, and I live on this road in plain sight of what's about to happen. And with the plan initially was proposed, it was quite shocking. My wife was probably more shocked over it than I was. When it was presented that they were going to run a water line right down through my front yard, and I understand respectfully that some of the land out there belongs to you guys, but you don't have to mow it, you don't have to care for it. You don't have 2 little kids running around and playing. You have to worry about workmen and machines and noise. 11 years ago, when my wife and I moved into this neighborhood, we were looking for a place to raise our children. A quiet place. My wife is a hippie. We homeschool our kids. We don't bother anyone. We're probably one of the few families, at least on that street, that are just around all day because we live our own quiet, simple life. And if you guys change this, like I get it, if we put our R1 into it, if you change this to an R6, and they have expressed every thought better than I could have, this will change this neighborhood in a way that It would remove all the reasons why we moved here. I'm a young dad, and I want to put roots in somewhere where I can raise my kids, and someday when I'm old, they can come home, and home is home. And that we don't feel the need to sell our home before our property value bottoms out. With all due respect to their analysis, I don't agree with it. From people who don't live in this township, who don't understand who we are. I've never seen, we live in a very divided time in this country, and I've never seen people so united, and we all vote for different people, don't we? But on this, we have agreement. I will end with this. Yes, sir?
Yeah, comments come this way.
That's fine. I with all due respect, these are my neighbors. In the end, this company will walk away with lots of money. And we will be left with what we have lost.
Questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Joanne on 1603 Pine Hill.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Yarkos. I live at 1603 Pinecone Street. I've lived there for 50 years. My property is 3/4 of an acre, as is most of the property on Pinecone. I think all of us here are in agreement that we knew this property was going to be developed. We just thought it was going to be developed in a more sensible manner that fit the architect of the rest of the neighborhood. So this is what's disappointing to us, that these people out of our neighborhoods are coming in and want to put this kind of facility in our front and backyards. But that's not why I want to talk. What I want to tell you is, this all started because the Regional Planning Board recommended this to go forward. And I want to let you know, I was at that meeting, as were several of us, and at that time, I asked the committee how many of them had actually driven out and seen the property that they were talking about. 2 of them. Out of all of the people that voted, only 2 of them took the time to come out and look at the land they were recommending you to move forward with the R6. Out of those 2 people that actually visually saw the property, 1 of them voted no. They all voted without having any idea about the safety. They didn't have a fire report, they didn't have a safety report, and they didn't have the traffic report. So how could they have made this recommendation in good conscience to you people that you're thinking they actually put time and effort into it? And they did not. I'm here to tell you they did not. And I think it's very important that you realize the recommendations you're getting from that planning committee are not worth the paper they're written on. One other thing I want to say is, I've lived on Pinecone for many, many years. And it took me probably a dozen phone calls to get our road looked at to get paved. It has been paved in the 50 years that I have lived there. The homeowners had to pay to have it surfaced the first time. And we've only had it done 3 times since then, and only after I have hounded and hounded the board to please come out and take a look at it. So with this new property being developed, when is Pinecone ever going to get resurfaced again? Where's the money going to come from? To me, this is a money grab that everybody's going to get more property taxes from, and the rest of us are going to be left having to, I don't know what, because I'm telling you, you don't pay any attention to Pinecone now. You won't pay any attention to it if this property goes ahead with what you're proposing.
Okay, thank you very much.
There were 2 people that came in and signed after we kind of picked up the list. Barry, did you want to still speak? Barry on Chelmsford? Good, okay. And then Robert on Northwood. That was the last person I signed. You good? Okay. All right, I just want to make sure we had an opportunity. They signed up. That's all the people I had on the list.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give the one member of the applicant's team 3 minutes to respond to whatever you've heard.
All right, there were a lot of concerns, so I hope that I'm summarizing enough here. First of all, wanted to talk about traffic. So with our application, we have done a trip generation report. That is what's required in the zoning application. That was done by Davie Resource Group, who is an engineering firm that has to follow specific guidelines for that traffic generation report. That dictates whether or not a traffic study needs to be completed at this time. It did not meet the qualifications, so a full traffic study was not done. However, when we do go to regional planning for site plan approval, and the trustees also review the site plan, if we were to get zoned to R6, most likely they are going to request at that time a full traffic study to be done. And then if there are improvements that need to be done, it would be required that those improvements are done prior to the community or the development moving forward. They would not give, so if a traffic study is done and it says you need to add a turning lane, you need to widen the road, there needs to be road improvements have to be done in order to support that additional traffic, then the developer, if we want to move the project forward, we would need to pay to have those things done. We would need to agree for all of that to be completed in order for the project to move forward. And it would have to be done prior to the project coming forth or at the same time, right? So that is related to the traffic. I would also just like to say in those traffic studies, they do look at the distance from intersections, they look at whether lights need to be added, they look at safety related to speed travel. All of those things are looked at in that traffic study and adjusted accordingly. So that's the first thing related to traffic. The next thing related to density. So a lot of conversation related to density. If you look at the regional planning approval, they state that the density allowed under R6 would be 240 homes that we would be able to fit on this 60 acres, 240. The site plan that we presented was 120 houses, so half of what the R6 allows for. In addition, we also have 2 separate products. So on the south side, you do have 55-foot lots. On the north side, you have 65-foot lots. We increased that voluntarily on the north side to provide an opportunity for bigger houses and to take advantage of the natural terrain that we are protecting on the north side of the property to really take advantage of that so folks can enjoy those views of the ravine, right? So if we really were coming in here and wanting high density would be 240 units. We reduced that in half. And I would say as well on that, I fully understand that most of the homes in the area are about a half an acre. That is the competitive advantage over this new, am I at my time?
Yeah, it can,
Sorry.
why don't you make one more point briefly and then,
I was just gonna say that is the competitive advantage over the existing homeowners, is having that large lot. So your land, the value of your land, that larger half an acre is definitely more, it's more valuable over someone that's living here. But there are different buyers. Not everyone wants to have a half an acre. Not everyone wants to have to mow that yard and have the recreational space in their backyard. They want to go places, they want to do things outside of their home. And me being a mom, I'm a mom too, and I enjoy having neighbor kids walking through my backyard and coming into my house and sitting and having dinner with me. That's enjoyable to me. So while other people don't want that, they want the space, they want the privacy, that's great. But a buyer here doesn't. They want the community feel, they want their neighbor to be close, they want to feel protected, surrounded by folks. I'm good.
thank you very much. I'm going to call the testimony portion of this meeting concluded. What I recommend, and this is something that the Plain Township Zoning Commission has done for many, many, many years, is someone will make a motion to approve the amendment that will then be seconded and put on the floor. The movement is not binding himself to vote the way he has moved, simply to get it on the table. And then at that point, the commission members will discuss in front of you what, and ultimately come to a vote. I see one hand up. Can you go to the microphone and make it?
Yes, I'd like to briefly make a couple comments about what Kristen said. I would like to understand, if you're going to put 240 lots on these 59 acres, where are the roads? Where do you have any room? You've got 120 there, so you're going to double the volume? That makes no sense. No sense at all. Second of all, fine, she likes to have children running through her yards all the time. These people are not going to want that. If you drive down Fountains of Edgewood entrance, it's just going to be like that, and the people don't do that. This is fantasy land as far as I'm concerned.
And I'm not going to require her to respond. Okay, we're now going to go, you can sit down.
Thank you.
Do I have this?
I'd have to consider, Mr. Chairman, is whether or not the applicant is willing to amend the application to voluntarily impose a restrictive covenant limiting the use of the property in question, if it's zoned R6, to single-family uses, and even perhaps to limit the number for density purposes to, as proposed,
The 120.
20 units.
Mr. Croft? Can you come up to the podium?
He's selling it. He's not going to own it. He's not going to own it.
Well, I've called on him, so come on up. The question has been put to you and to Hovnanian, whether whoever ends up being the developer will voluntarily restrict the deeds, as John has suggested, meaning single family only, or restrict the preliminary plan and the final plan to single family, and with a density no greater than what's shown on the site plan.
Right, and I think John asked that earlier, and I think we agreed. I think the proper way would be between your legal folks and the developer's legal folks. How can we do that to make sure that that accomplishes what you want? I think there's no question they would be willing to do that and they would.
And I think that under 708.5, that the final plan would have to be one that was approved by the trustees. Hovnanian, I mean, on the record, would you commit to that or not?
As of right now, this is the site plan that we would like to move forward. So we would definitely have, obviously that's a question for the legal minds of how they would draft all of that. But this is the site plan that we are looking to move forward. And yes, you are correct. Regional planning engineers they have to go through all of the engineering on the site. The trustees have to approve it as well. So there are multiple steps beyond this process to ensure that the density does not get increased.
Terry, if I may.
Yeah.
So, obviously, the question is valid, and the goal of the question we understand, and that would be everybody in the room's same goal is, if that would have to happen, how are they guaranteed that that happens? But if you look at the whole procedure, as you know, by the time it gets to the trustees, if this all gets changed around, they're a no anyway. So, either way, that would happen, and you have they would agree to do what you're asking for, John, on the record, and you have the protection of your trustees, assuming they would protect the interest of the township if this goes awry or we break the rules of what we've agreed in writing to do, as John's asking.
And Terry, relative to any such restrictions, we would want those to run in favor of the township as well as the residents of the township, so it would be enforceable by either one. So what I'm asking is if the applicant is prepared and willing to amend the application to...
You know what, good point, John. The question is whether the application will be amended to guarantee those 2 points. One, single family only, two, no more than 120 units. And John, could they do that here?
No. Yeah, they could amend the application as presented for us, and at that point we could move to approve and have a continuing discussion.
Okay. So the question is in the applicant's plat. That includes both of you.
If the board would allow us to make that amendment right now to add that, density requirement, no more than the 120 homes, we would absolutely do that if that would then allow for a vote.
And single family.
And single family, yes.
Okay.
I think we would have to move to accept the amendment.
That's what I was thinking.
So I am moving to accept the amendment to the application to amend the same to reflect, to restrict the development if it passes to R6, so that it would be limited to single-family homes, limited to no more density than 120 units, and that those restrictions would run to the benefit and be enforceable by the township and any of its residents.
Okay, and do I have a second?
That language, I've seen that before, I've done that before, it can be crafted with the township law.
Okay, we have a second. I'll call the roll now. Rambacher?
Yes.
Salts?
Yes.
McCallion?
Yes.
Carries. Okay, the application is now amended in 3 respects. 1, single-family homes only. 2, no more than 120 units on this parcel, assuming that it passes, and that's not yet guaranteed. And 3, the restrictions that we discussed and part of the amendment would endure to the benefit of the township and to the benefit of the residents of the township, which means that they would be enforceable in court upon the application of either.
Yes, and that being said, Mr. Chairman, I will move for discussion purposes to approve the application as amended.
Okay, And neither of you are bound by your motion or second. We'll have discussion by the board. I'm sorry, but we're now at the board discussion.
You can go sit down. It's okay, yes. So, board members, I understand that we're at the discussion phase now. And this is my second zoning commission I've been sitting on. It's rare for me to get a recommendation from the regional planning commission that clearly the residents do. So it's quite a compliment. I'm a little bit confused by the regional planning commission's recommendation in that the area is already zoned R1, which allows for single-family homes to be built in that territory. So, I mean, with my recommendation from my seat is clearly this community does not want this, and I would vote no.
Other comments from commission members?
To counter that point, I will say RPC does have extensive experience in looking at these. They did look at it and they approved it. And under the PUD, the final plan does go to the Board of Trustees to review and approve and further refine the development plan. And our role is significantly limited in that we can only switch from R1 to what's approved the R6 as amended application. So we're not the ones that are going to approve a final development plan that the board may say no. Say no, we want a more livable community, or we want to address the homeowners' concerns. So that would be my counterpoint. I'm not saying you're wrong and I'm right. I'm just saying that's the other side of the point.
John, any comments?
I hear both of the comments loud and clear, and I've heard everyone here loud and clear, and I understand. The overlying concern I have is, this property will ultimately be developed. Okay, whether it says under R1, R6, whatever it might be, it will ultimately be developed. And so my hope had been with the application as amended with the restriction that anyone in this room could get enforced, that we are ultimately providing a protection of the community so that this doesn't become multi-family homes. It doesn't become duplexes. It doesn't provide for transitional housing and those sorts of things. I'm also, I am aware, I have no affiliation with Hovnanian at all, but I am aware of the reputation, and they do have a very good reputation. They're very capable, they hire very capable people. I think that's a plus. And oftentimes in these situations, you've got to look at, who's the devil do you want to deal with? Hovnanian being the reputable developer and builder that it is, Mr. Koth and the Koth family have been around for a long time. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the family. I don't represent them. I never represented them. I say that. You're getting credible people. That's a plus for you. Getting the protection of restricted covenants is a plus for you. It's not going to alleviate or ameliorate the traffic concerns. It's not going to alleviate or ameliorate some of the other privacy concerns. But there again, I'm looking down the road a bit, and you're going to see housing. And what can I do, or what can we do to best protect? You also have the further layering.
trustees, consistent with a PUD classification. So there's some layering there that I think helps. So I'm tipping my hand, but I am leaning in favor of a yes vote.
Let me now give my comments. First of all, I am well familiar with the area, Ivy, Elmhurst, etc. And I've been a resident of Plain Township for 35 years. I know people who live in that area, in the adjoining areas. Ivy is a beautiful street that 30 years ago nobody drove down, but there's certainly increasing traffic. And traffic has increased on Elmhurst to the point that eventually a traffic signal was placed on Apple Grove. So, traffic and road conditions, those are issues. Those are not issues necessarily for the zoning commission. Engineer Keith Bennett is the person who would better be able to answer. Do we create a three-way stop? Do we have a traffic signal, etc.? I heard the testimony about the stormwater issue. Again, that's a very real concern. But that is something to be addressed by other bodies. And believe me, the engineer who ultimately puts together the site plan is going to have to satisfy the appropriate authorities. I share the skepticism over the $250,000 value. I suspect that most of the homes adjoining the proposed development would be in the 400 range, maybe more, thanks to inflation. I am concerned, I share the concern that unlike some other PUDs, we don't see a clubhouse or we don't see a pool. That certainly concerns me. Pinecone Street, I understand. I live on a street, in the 25 and a half years we've lived on our street, it's been paved exactly one time. We're probably lucky it was. And finally, we were shown a site plan that could be used, it would comply with the R1 zoning requirement. I agree with everybody that that's not the only potential R1 site plan. However, that is a site plan that could be submitted and could, with little change, be approved. And if the point of that exhibit was to say, hey, we could have a number of houses or driveways emptying out onto Ivy and onto Elmhurst, that could happen. So I didn't take it that the developer was saying, it's this or R6. I took that merely as an example. I agree with John's comments that if the zoning commission recommends going further, it's not time for the developer to pop the champagne corks. It's not done. The township, the trustees will have to approve a plan, and we now know that that plan would limit the developer to 120 sites and to single family. So those are my comments before we vote. Any other comments from other members?
Just one last comment. I will say we've had other developers come before us, and this is not the worst plan that I've seen be presented for a lot like this. We've all seen the redwoods that come in, and it goes from agricultural to you have apartment complexes sitting there. This developer appears to be willing to work with the township and work with within our rules and regulations to benefit everyone. So I'll just say that was my last comment.
you ready to vote?
Yes.
Aren't you supposed to represent the people of Plain Township? I've lived in my house for 48 years. You're supposed to represent us, not
I'm
the
sorry,
developer.
ma'am,
Not the
that phase is already ended. That phase is already ended.
How can you do this to us? How?
The debate
I don't
is
understand
over.
it.
We haven't even voted yet.
We haven't voted. Our duty is to the zoning resolution. Our duty is to the law. We are not elected representatives. Not knowing yet how I'll vote, that I'm starting to lean one way, you know, I'm gonna walk out of here and somebody is gonna be very mad at me. I'll just have to live with that. And I do this as a volunteer. So, with that in mind, I'm gonna call the roll. Randolph.
Yes.
Schultz.
No.
McKellen.
Yes.
Seeberger, yes. This is. Hold on. Mr. Zoning Director, when will this go to the trustees?
They'll take your recommendation, and their next board meeting, then they'll make a hearing date, which has to be in that 30-day time frame. So probably the first meeting in February, I would think it would be up to their vote. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm gonna turn this off first. Sure, I got that.